If someone poured bleach into your truck's gas tank, you'd shoot them. Yet, every Friday at 5 p.m., you gladly pay a bartender to pour toxic solvent into your own biological engine. And you call it unwinding. Your mechanical logic is a spectacular joke.
Welcome back to the Biological Meat Grinder. Today, we're staging a massive intervention for your liver, your shrinking brain, and that spare tire you call a waistline. Big Alcohol has pulled off the greatest marketing heist in human history, convincing grown men that drinking a literal cellular depressant is the peak of rugged masculinity. But let's check the dashboard. You're over 45. Your quick recovery is a myth. Your sleep is absolute garbage, and a simple 3-beer hangover now mysteriously lasts until Tuesday. In this documentary, we are dismantling the illusion. We're exposing 30 brutal, scientifically proven reasons why shutting off the chemical tap is the greatest biological upgrade you will ever make. No preaching, no judgment, just hardcore biological truth. Let's drain the tank. Reason 1. The testosterone hijack. Let's start with the ultimate biological betrayal. You drink to feel like a confident, rugged man, but chemically, you are actively doing the exact opposite. Alcohol, especially beer, is absolutely loaded with phytoestrogens and prolactin-stimulating compounds. When you pour this solvent into your system, your liver gets so desperately overwhelmed trying to filter the poison that it completely stops processing estrogen. The result? Your male testosterone violently crashes, while female estrogen heavily spikes. Your body actively begins storing thick layers of stubborn fat directly on your chest and your gut. You are voluntarily paying premium prices to chemically castrate your own endocrine system. Put the glass down and protect your primary male hardware. Reason 2. The REM sleep robbery. Society loves to perpetuate the massive lie of the nightcap. You think a couple of heavy drinks help you fall asleep because you pass out quickly. But losing consciousness is absolutely not the same thing as sleeping. Alcohol completely sabotages your brain's ability to enter the REM cycle, the deep, restorative phase of sleep where your biological engine actually repairs itself. Instead of healing, your central nervous system spends the entire night fighting off a chemical invasion. You wake up 8 hours later feeling like you were hit by a cement truck because your brain literally got zero rest. You are not sleeping. You are just lightly comatose. Stop blinding your internal repair crew and let your neurology actually reboot. Reason 3. The visceral fat furnace. You probably wonder why that massive spare tire around your waist refuses to leave, no matter how many miserable salads you eat. Here is the mechanical truth. Your liver is your body's primary fat-burning furnace. But when alcohol enters the system, the liver immediately recognizes it as a deadly, high-priority toxin. It completely shuts down all fat-burning operations to deal with the chemical emergency. Every single calorie you consume while drinking is immediately, aggressively shoved into deep, visceral fat storage, wrapping tightly around your internal organs like a suffocating winter coat. You are permanently stalling your metabolic engine just for a temporary buzz. Stop treating your liver like a toxic waste dump and let it do its actual job. Reason 4. The gray matter shrinkage. This isn't a metaphor. This is a terrifying, highly documented neurological reality. Regular, sustained alcohol consumption physically, structurally shrinks the actual mass of your brain. MRI scans consistently prove that the frontal lobe, the critical area responsible for executive function, emotional control, and complex decision-making, aggressively withers away under the constant wash of ethanol. You are voluntarily accelerating your own cognitive decline. Every time you pour a heavy drink, you are actively dissolving the incredibly complex, beautifully engineered biological hard drive inside your skull. You need that processing power to navigate the second half of your life. Stop systematically deleting your own neurological files. Reason 5. Dopamine bankruptcy. You drink because you want to feel a sudden rush of happiness and relaxation, but your brain operates on a very strict chemical economy. Alcohol forces a massive, unnatural flood of dopamine into your system. To protect itself from this violent chemical spike, your brain aggressively dials back its own natural dopamine production. When the alcohol wears off, you are left in a state of absolute neurochemical poverty. This is why the next day feels so incredibly bleak, anxious, and deeply unmotivated. You basically took out a massive, high-interest loan of artificial happiness, and tomorrow, the biological debt collectors are coming to break your legs. Stop borrowing against your own future joy and stabilize your internal economy. Reason 6. The ultimate hydraulic failure. We need to have a brutally honest conversation about the bedroom. You can eat all the raw beets and watermelon on the planet to build up your vascular pressure, but alcohol is a heavy-duty central nervous system depressant. It aggressively numbs the vital neurological signals traveling from your brain directly to your pelvic floor. It aggressively constricts your blood vessels and completely ruins the delicate hydraulic mechanics required for peak male performance. It is historically known as whiskey dick for a very clinical reason. You are actively pouring a numbing agent onto your most important mechanical hardware, completely guaranteeing a stalled engine when it matters most. Protect your hydraulics and keep the fuel lines clean. Reason 7. The cortisol overdrive. The greatest irony of alcohol is that millions of men use it exclusively to unwind from the massive stress of modern life. But here is the brutal biochemical joke. As soon as the initial buzz fades, your body goes into absolute panic mode attempting to purge the poison. This triggers a massive, violent release of cortisol, the primary stress hormone. You are drinking to relax, but you are chemically injecting yourself with pure, highly concentrated biological anxiety. Your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure surges, and your body remains locked in a desperate fight-or-flight response for the next 24 hours. You are trying to put out a psychological fire by aggressively pouring high-octane gasoline directly onto the flames. Reason 8. The muscle synthesis shutdown. You spend grueling hours in the gym tearing down your muscle fibers, believing you are forging an unstoppable physical frame. But if you hit the bar after hitting the weights, you are completely wasting your time. Alcohol aggressively blocks protein synthesis, the exact biological mechanism your body strictly requires to repair and build dense, heavy muscle tissue. It also heavily depletes your natural human growth hormone. You are actively unplugging the heavy machinery in your biological construction site. You cannot build a heavy-duty, highly resilient physical structure if you constantly flood the construction zone with a corrosive solvent. Keep the alcohol out of your system and let your muscular architecture actually rebuild itself. Reason 9. The dehydration rust. You wake up feeling like a stiff, completely seized, heavily rusted iron hinge, and you wonder why your joints are screaming in agony. Alcohol is an aggressive, heavy-duty diuretic. It ruthlessly forces your kidneys to aggressively flush massive amounts of water and vital electrolytes directly out of your system. This violent dehydration completely drains the essential lubricating fluids from your joints, your cartilage, and your spinal discs. You are literally sucking the vital mechanical grease right out of your own biological engine. A dehydrated body is a rapidly aging, fragile, heavily friction-bound machine. Stop intentionally turning your internal fluid reserves into a dry, barren, completely rusted, painful desert. Reason 10. The gut microbiome massacre. Inside your digestive tract lives a massively complex, incredibly delicate ecosystem of billions of beneficial bacteria. This microbiome controls your immunity, your digestion, and even your mental focus. When you swallow strong alcohol, it acts exactly like a chemical sterilizer. You are essentially pouring highly toxic bleach directly onto a beautiful, thriving, biological garden. It violently massacres your healthy bacteria, leading to chronic inflammation, severe acid reflux, and a deeply compromised immune system. You cannot expect to absorb high-quality nutrients or maintain a strong defense grid if you are constantly dropping chemical bombs on your own internal troops. Respect the gut and stop the senseless massacre.
Mandatory pit stop. You just learned your relaxing hobby shrinks your brain, murders your bedroom hydraulics, and turns your gut into a toxic wasteland. Congrats, Captain. You're literally paying billionaires to age you by a full decade. Grab some actual water. The damage report only gets worse from here.
Reason 11. The financial black hole. Let's completely remove the biology for a second and look at the brutal mathematics. The alcohol industry is a massive, ruthless corporate machine, and you are its favorite, most gullible ATM. Calculate the exact amount of money you spend on beer, wine, whiskey, and the inevitable junk food that follows every single week. Multiply that by 52 weeks. You are literally burning thousands of dollars a year. You are financing the massive luxury yachts of corporate billionaires by purchasing a toxic solvent that actively destroys your health. It is the ultimate financial scam. You are voluntarily paying a massive premium for the absolute privilege of poisoning your own engine. Keep your hard-earned wealth and stop funding your own destruction. Reason 12. The blood pressure spikes. Your cardiovascular system is a beautifully designed, highly efficient network of pressurized plumbing. Alcohol throws a massive, heavy iron wrench directly into those gears. Regular drinking aggressively constricts your blood vessels and triggers the release of stress hormones that force your heart to pump much harder just to circulate blood. Over time, this constant, violent elevation in blood pressure causes microscopic tears in your arterial walls, completely setting the stage for heart disease and catastrophic strokes. You are basically overpressurizing an aging pipe system until the valves eventually blow. Stop forcing your central pump to work in a state of constant, desperate emergency and let your pressure stabilize naturally. Reason 13. The false confidence trap. Big alcohol has sold you the magnificent illusion that a drink makes you smooth, charismatic, and incredibly interesting. This is a complete neurological lie. Alcohol doesn't add a single drop of real confidence to your personality. It simply heavily sedates the parts of your brain responsible for self-awareness and judgment. You aren't actually becoming more charming. Your biological standards are just violently plummeting, and you are becoming louder and significantly more obnoxious. Real, impenetrable masculine confidence comes from absolute sharp focus, high testosterone, and a fully functional, highly disciplined mind. Stop relying on a chemical crutch that just makes you look like a fool to everyone who is actually sober in the room. Reason 14. The countdown timer. When you are over 45, time becomes your absolute most valuable, non-renewable biological asset. If you go out and get heavily intoxicated on a Friday night, your entire Saturday is officially dead. Your brain and your liver require a massive 48-hour window just to clear the toxic fallout. You are voluntarily taking 20% of your free, productive weekend time and violently flushing it directly down the toilet while lying on the couch in absolute misery. Your biological timer is ticking relentlessly, and you are aggressively hitting the pause button on your own life for a few hours of cheap, blurry chemical numbness. Reclaim your weekends, maximize your time, and stop throwing away your most precious remaining resource. Reason 15. The nutrient thief. You can eat the most expensive, highly nutritious, perfectly balanced diet in the world, but if you chase it with alcohol, you are actively sabotaging your own investment. Alcohol acts exactly like a ruthless biological thief. It actively inflames the stomach lining and completely blocks your intestines from absorbing critical, heavy-duty minerals like zinc, magnesium, and essential B vitamins. These are the exact raw materials your factory desperately needs to manufacture testosterone and maintain energy. You are essentially loading your cargo ship with premium fuel and then aggressively blasting a massive hole directly in the hull before it ever reaches the engine. Stop the internal theft and let your body actually use the fuel you give it. Reason 16. Ignoring the check engine light. You call it taking the edge off or unwinding after a brutally hard day at the office. Let me translate that into actual mechanical terms for you. Drinking alcohol to deal with your daily stress is exactly the biological equivalent of taking a thick piece of black electrical tape and aggressively sticking it directly over the flashing red "check engine" light on your truck's dashboard. You haven't actually fixed a single problem. The engine is still violently overheating, the oil is still leaking, and your life is still highly stressful. You have just cowardly disabled the internal alarm system so you can comfortably ignore the catastrophic damage until the entire vehicle violently crashes into a ditch. Stop hiding from the dashboard alerts. Face the mechanical reality, fix the underlying engine problems, and stop taping over your own biological alarms. Reason 17. Liver. Overwork. Your liver is an absolute marvel of heavy-duty biological engineering. It is a massive, highly efficient industrial oil filter designed to keep your bloodstream perfectly clean and violently powerful. But it has a strict mechanical limit. When you pour alcohol down your throat, your liver drops every single other critical task, including fat metabolism and hormone regulation, to desperately fight the highly toxic chemical fire you just started. You are actively forcing your primary biological filter to work brutal, unpaid overtime shifts just to keep you alive. Over time, this constant, aggressive abuse physically scars the tissue, turning a smooth, highly efficient filter into a rigid, heavily rusted, completely useless piece of dead meat. Stop torturing your internal mechanic. Reason 18. The patriarch illusion. Every single man wants to be the absolute, undisputed leader of his family. The strong, highly focused, incredibly sharp patriarch that everyone looks up to for protection and wisdom. But alcohol completely shatters that majestic biological legacy. It violently transforms the strong, capable protector into a deeply exhausted, heavily snoring, emotionally unstable burden who passes out in his favorite armchair by 8 o'clock every single night. You lose your sharp mechanical edge, your quick reflexes, and your highly respected authority. You cannot actively lead your family through the dangerous wilderness of life if your central navigation system is constantly drowned in a cheap, highly toxic chemical fog. Put the glass down, reclaim your sharp biological crown, and actually lead. Reason 19. Immune system sabotage. Your body operates a massive, highly sophisticated, heavily armed internal military force designed to hunt down and aggressively annihilate any invading biological threats. But alcohol acts exactly like a treacherous inside agent. Even just one single night of heavy drinking completely disables your white blood cells for up to 24 solid hours. You are essentially marching directly into the central security room of your biological fortress and forcefully shutting down all the cameras, unlocking the heavy iron gates, and sending the heavily armed guards home to sleep. You leave your magnificent biological castle completely defenseless and wide open to microscopic invaders. Stop sabotaging your own internal military and keep your heavy-duty immune shields fully powered. Reason 20. Insulin resistance. You probably think you are being incredibly healthy by avoiding sugary sodas and donuts. But the moment you start knocking back heavily fermented beers or sweet liquors, you are aggressively flooding your internal carburetor with pure, highly concentrated liquid syrup. Alcohol violently spikes your blood sugar, forcing your pancreas to desperately pump out massive waves of insulin to deal with the chaotic chemical surge. Over time, your biological engine becomes completely deaf to these signals. Your cells slam their heavy iron doors shut, leading directly to massive weight gain and setting a high-speed, completely unstoppable collision course straight toward type 2 diabetes. You are voluntarily destroying your own fuel regulation system. Keep the heavy syrup out of the gas tank.
Wipe that cold sweat. You've survived 2/3 of this reality check. Give yourself a sarcastic, slow clap. You now know you're funding corporate yachts while aggressively rusting your own joints. But the dashboard alarms are still screaming. Let's expose the final 10 reasons to permanently shut the valve.
Reason 21. The anxiety rebound. You probably refer to it as the Sunday morning scaries or hangxiety, but scientifically, It is a brutal neurochemical war zone. Alcohol is an artificial depressant that heavily suppresses your central nervous system. To keep you breathing, your brain aggressively overcompensates by massively ramping up its excitatory chemicals. But when the alcohol finally clears your system, that massive biological countermeasure is still running at absolute maximum speed. Your brain is suddenly firing on all cylinders with no brakes, completely flooding your body with pure, unadulterated, deeply terrifying panic and physical tremors. You drank to calm your nerves, but you actually just loaded a massive, tightly coiled chemical spring that violently snaps back and shatters your mental peace the very next day. Reason 22. Heart arrhythmia. Your heart is the absolute, undisputed master engine of your entire biological vehicle. It relies on incredibly precise, perfectly timed, highly complex electrical signals to maintain a steady, massively powerful hydraulic rhythm. Alcohol violently interferes with this delicate electrical grid. It acts like a clumsy mechanic aggressively ripping wires out of a highly tuned supercomputer. Heavy drinking physically triggers chaotic, deeply terrifying misfires in the upper chambers of your heart, a highly documented condition clinically known as holiday heart syndrome. Your main engine literally starts to stutter, skip, and aggressively choke under the chemical load. You cannot expect peak cardiovascular performance if you are constantly pouring conductive acid directly onto your internal spark plugs. Reason 23. Bone density drain. You naturally assume that your skeletal framework is a permanent, completely indestructible iron chassis. You are catastrophically mistaken. Your bones are highly active biological tissues, constantly breaking down and rebuilding themselves. Alcohol acts as a highly aggressive, heavily destructive chemical acid that violently leaches critical calcium directly out of your bones. It physically completely disrupts the specific hormones your body strictly requires to absorb heavy minerals. Over years of drinking, you are actively transforming your massively powerful, deeply resilient solid iron biological chassis into highly fragile, completely brittle, deeply pathetic white chalk. Stop dissolving your own structural foundation and protect the heavy-duty framework that actually keeps you standing upright. Reason 24. The memory wipe. Your brain's hippocampus is a beautifully complex, incredibly sophisticated biological hard drive, responsible for recording and permanently storing the most important memories of your entire life. When you consume heavy amounts of alcohol, you are forcefully crashing the entire server. The chemical solvent violently blocks the specific neurological pathways required to transfer short-term experiences into permanent, long-term ironclad storage. You aren't just forgetting the night before, you physically, biologically failed to record the data in the first place. You are voluntarily, aggressively deleting the highly valuable files of your own existence, intentionally leaving massive, dark, terrifying blank spaces on your own hard drive. Stop erasing your own history for a cheap chemical thrill. Reason 25. The motivation assassin. True male biology is naturally deeply wired for aggressive ambition, building empires, protecting the family, and conquering massive physical challenges. Alcohol is the ultimate, highly specialized biological assassin of human drive. By constantly flooding your brain with cheap, artificial, heavily processed dopamine, it completely destroys your natural hunger to actually achieve anything real. Your brain becomes deeply lazy, absolutely content to sit on a heavily worn couch while your actual life entirely passes you by. You completely lose your sharp mechanical edge, your fierce internal fire, and your relentless desire to win. You are chemically lobotomizing your own ambition. Stop paying for the absolute privilege of turning yourself into a highly compliant, entirely unmotivated biological vegetable. Reason 26. The junk food trap. We all know the deeply embarrassing routine. You successfully maintain a highly disciplined, heavily structured nutritional diet all week. Then, Friday night arrives. The alcohol violently suppresses the logical, highly disciplined frontal lobe of your brain, and your biological brakes completely fail. At 2 in the morning, you find yourself aggressively shoving highly processed, heavily fried, utterly toxic garbage directly into your beautiful biological engine. Alcohol artificially stimulates the exact starvation receptors in your brain, convincing you that you are dying of hunger when you are actually just deeply intoxicated. You are using a toxic chemical solvent to completely hijack your own highly disciplined dietary steering wheel, intentionally driving your nutritional goals straight off a massive cliff. Reason 27. The chemical imbalance. Your brain maintains an incredibly delicate, highly complex balancing act between two massive neurotransmitters: GABA, which physically calms you down, and glutamate, which aggressively excites you. Alcohol violently, completely destroys this beautiful mechanical equilibrium. It artificially inflates the calming signals while aggressively suffocating the exciting ones, turning your mind into a deeply confused, heavily lagging biological swamp. Over time, your brain physically, structurally alters itself just to survive the constant chemical warfare. You are permanently mutating the highly advanced, brilliantly engineered software running your entire physical machine, trading long-term mental stability for a few hours of blurry, entirely fake chemical peace. Stop intentionally corrupting your own biological code. Reason 28. Ruined reaction time. You pride yourself on being a highly capable, massively sharp, entirely dependable adult male. But alcohol violently rusts your mechanical reflexes down to the absolute agonizing speed of a crashing 1990s computer. It aggressively slows down the critical electrical communication between your central nervous system and your physical muscle fibers. Even days after a heavy drinking session, your hand-eye coordination, your fine motor skills, and your split-second physical decision-making are completely compromised. You are intentionally pouring thick, highly viscous molasses directly onto the lightning-fast fiber-optic cables of your nervous system. You cannot protect your family or perform at absolute peak capacity if your biological processing speed is permanently lagging behind reality. Reason 29. Accelerated aging. Look closely in the mirror. Alcohol is an incredibly aggressive, highly destructive biological time machine that strictly only moves wildly forward. The toxic solvent aggressively dehydrates your entire physical system, completely destroying the heavy-duty collagen and deep elasticity of your skin. It violently breaks down the microscopic blood vessels in your face, leaving you with a permanent, deeply red, highly inflamed, heavily swollen vascular roadmap across your cheeks. You are voluntarily paying premium corporate prices to intentionally make yourself look heavily worn, deeply exhausted, and biologically a full decade older than your actual age. Stop chemically accelerating your own physical decay and start actually preserving your heavy-duty exterior biological armor. Reason 30. The ultimate irony. Let's finish with the most brutal, highly cynical truth of all: the absolute ultimate irony of modern male drinking. You fiercely defend your independence, you hate paying heavy taxes, and you pride yourself on not being controlled by anyone. Yet, you willingly, enthusiastically march into a store and hand over massive amounts of your hard-earned wealth to corporate billionaires, purchasing a highly marketed, deeply toxic industrial solvent that actively shrinks your brain, heavily rusts your joints, permanently destroys your testosterone, and chemically castrates your internal hydraulics. It is the most brilliantly executed, massively successful corporate scam in human history, and you are their absolute favorite volunteer victim. It is time to finally wake up, shut the valve, and completely take your biological power back.
That's 30. 30 brutal, undeniable reasons to stop pouring industrial solvent into your gas tank. You can keep trading your male legacy for a few hours of blurry numbness, or you can walk past the bar and act like the unstoppable machine you were built to be. Biology doesn't care about excuses. If you actually survived this reality check, prove it. Drop "I survived" with a emoji to confuse the weak guys who clicked off 20 minutes ago. Subscribe before your engine permanently stalls. Class dismissed.